I always thought silence was safer. But 20 years of being the afterthought at every birthday, every holiday, every family photo, it wears you down in ways you can't explain. I was the one who kept the baby teeth, the hospital bracelets, the hand-drawn cards. I remembered everything. They didn't even remember to say thank you. And when I found that password list tucked inside a book no one ever touched, I almost put it back. But why did it include the security system login for a house I didn't live in? Before I share what happened next, hit subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're listening from. I didn't plan on holding a garage sale. It started with a leak, a tiny crack in the upstairs pipe, just enough to soak the boxes I'd left untouched since 2009. They were labeled with permanent marker. Mark's baby stuff, Emily's art projects, tax docs 97-04. And then, one box I'd long forgotten, marked only with an X. That was the box. But back to the sale. I listed it on Facebook Marketplace, just a quiet one-day sale. Saturday, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. No early birds. I live in a modest neighborhood, tucked behind a row of nicer homes with flagstone driveways and professionally mulched flower beds. Mine has chipped paint, hand-dug flower beds, and a mailbox that leans a little to the left. But people come for the deals, not the decor. At 8:43 a.m., they started arriving anyway. One woman, mid-40s, big sunglasses, smelled like dry shampoo and resentment, snatched a stack of vintage Pyrex and didn't even say hello. A man bought my late husband's power tools for $18 and called them junk, right in front of me. But I smiled. Let it all go. That was the point. And then someone picked up that item. It was in the bin with old remote controls and used gift cards and cables that belonged to electronics we didn't own anymore. A cheap plastic folder, see-through, sun-yellowed at the edges. I almost tossed it. Inside were papers. A mix of printed emails, screenshots, and a manila envelope I'd never opened. It was the folder I found in 2012, the one I wasn't meant to find. I'd buried it in that box. I thought I was past caring. I priced the whole folder at $6.50. No one questioned it. But by Sunday night, my daughter Emily called. And she never calls. "Did you sell something weird yesterday?" she asked, her voice strained like she was holding back something ugly. "Depends," I said. "What counts as weird?" There was a pause. Static. Or maybe breathing. Then she hung up. That's when I checked my old password notebook. It was hidden inside The Secret Garden, a book I hadn't read since Mark was 8. I don't know why I even flipped through it. But there, tucked between pages 88 and 89, was the list. Some passwords scribbled in pencil, others in my late husband's neat block letters. Only now it had something new. A 4-digit code. Bryce House SSC 7392. And next to it, a single word. Cam backup. But here's the thing. I haven't lived at Bryce House in over 14 years. That was my son Mark's home, the one his wife insisted I be kept out of her boundaries. Why would I have a security system backup code for their house? And why was the date next to it, last month? The next morning, a white SUV sat parked across from my house for nearly an hour. Engine off. No one got out. I don't have neighbors on that side, just an empty field and the old softball diamond. When I stepped onto the porch, it drove away. That night, I checked my Ring app. The footage from Saturday? Gone. Only one clip remained. 8:47 a.m. A woman in sunglasses. She's smiling, but not at the camera. At the folder. And she's not a stranger. It was Emily. But she told me she was in Denver all weekend for a silent retreat. That folder didn't just have passwords. It had a printed copy of an old email chain between Mark and a woman whose name I didn't recognize. But her last name matched his wife's maiden name. Some of the emails were detailed. Personal. One line still haunts me. As long as she never finds this thread, we're good. She doesn't even know how to access the account. That email was dated June 5th, 2012. The same day I remember being locked out of my PayPal for suspicious activity. I went in my files and pulled the old tax records. That year, there was a $2,500 deposit made under my name, then withdrawn 2 days later. I never saw that money. But the transaction ID was familiar, because it showed up again in one of the screenshots I just sold for $6.50. I didn't sleep much that night. I kept checking the Ring app. Nothing new. But in the morning, a notification flashed. Login from new device, iPad, location unknown. I hadn't touched my iPad in over a year. It was still in the kitchen drawer. When I opened it, it was already on. And the Notes app was open to a file I didn't create. It read, "She remembers too much. Next time, wipe the bin." I used to think paranoia was just loneliness wearing heels. But ever since that folder disappeared, the air in my house feels different. Not haunted. Not quite. But aware. Like the creak of a floorboard when no one's home. Or the sound of your own name whispered from a muted speaker. But how can you prove someone's watching when they already know what you'll check first? The next few days, I acted normal. I baked banana bread. I deadhead the azaleas. I made 2 copies of the remaining screenshots I had saved on an old flash drive, one for my safe deposit box and one for the locked glove compartment in my car. I also changed my Wi-Fi name from grandmagwen_24 to No Eyes Here 77. It didn't stop anything, but it made me feel better. And sometimes, that's enough to keep going. On Wednesday, I logged into my old PayPal again, the one I hadn't touched since 2012. This time, I went back further. To the note sections on old payments, back when people still used them like diary entries. There were hundreds of little $5 to $20 transfers labeled with things like groceries, gas, and lunch for mom. But then, nestled between 2 December transactions for Mark, was one for $150 with no note. Just a string of numbers. 21-20-30907. That's when I remembered. Emily used to date everything backward. Year first, then month, then day, then time. So that string wasn't random. It was March 9th, 2021, 7 a.m. That's the day I was scheduled for a colonoscopy. I remember it because I'd been fasting and no one offered to drive me. I took a Lyft. Came home dizzy. Spent the day recovering alone. But why would Emily receive $150 from Mark during my appointment? That night, I checked my health portal. It took a minute. I hadn't logged in for ages. But when I finally accessed it, there was a note in the visit summary I didn't remember seeing before. Patient declined anesthesia consent. Signed waiver included. I never declined anesthesia. I wanted it. And I sure as hell never signed a waiver. So I requested the scanned signature. It was there. Shaky, slanted, and absolutely not mine. But the signature was oddly familiar. It looked like one I'd seen before on birthday cards from grandkids. By Friday, I was unraveling. I didn't want to be, but things weren't adding up. I got a call from the consignment store downtown. A woman had come in trying to sell a stack of old electronics and files, including a folder with part of my social security number written in pen on the inside flap. They only called because I'd sold there before. It looked personal, the clerk said. When I asked for a description of the woman, she hesitated. She said she was your niece. Pretty. Blonde. Looked tense. Asked for cash up front. I don't have a niece. But I do have a daughter. The next creepy moment was so subtle, I almost dismissed it. I was watering my front yard. The sprinkler was running. Just background noise. Then my neighbor walked over. Rick, from 3 houses down, holding a brown padded envelope. Found this in my mailbox, he said. It's addressed to you. There was no return address. No postmark. Just my name, in typed capital letters. Inside was one thing. A black and white photocopy of my driver's license, with the word, void, stamped across the photo. Below it, a sticky note. Handwritten. Might want to renew your identity before someone else does. I don't know how long I stood there, staring. But when I came inside, something was off. My computer mouse was facing the opposite direction. I always leave it pointing left. Force of habit. Now it faced right. Centered. Perfectly aligned with the keyboard. I checked my browser history. Empty. Recycle bin. Cleared. But one folder on my desktop had been renamed. It was called Photos_Florida Trip 2008. Only, we never took a trip to Florida. I opened the folder. There were just 3 files. Cam snapshot _07_14_23 MOV. Statement _Delridge Bank PDF. Note to self _password reset TXT. The video file played first. Just 4 seconds. It was ring footage. My front porch. From July. A hand reaches toward the camera.
Gloved.
It tilts the device. Then black. The second file was an old bank statement from my account. But someone had used a red box to highlight a specific line. Electronic transfer. $4,200. Account ending in 1347. I didn't recognize that account, but in the final text file, the message was short and sharp. You were never supposed to see the 1347 account. It's already been moved. No name.
No signature.
But the text had been updated the day after the garage sale. I took the flash drive out of my safe and brought it to a friend I trusted. Gloria, who used to work IT at the local high school before they replaced her with cloud systems. She plugged it into her laptop, raised her eyebrows, and said, "Someone's been covering tracks. This isn't just deleted data. It's overwritten." She ran some recovery software, but only one file came back. A spreadsheet. No title. Just numbers.
Dozens of them.
Each line had 4 columns.
A date.
A transfer amount. A routing number. And the name of one of my family members. Emily.
Mark.
Even my ex-husband, who'd passed 5 years ago. And there it was again. The same account number, appearing again and again, next to amounts ranging from $50 to $5,000. Some marked as reimbursements. Others as services. And one labeled final payment. Silence. Gloria leaned back and crossed her arms. "I think someone was using your identity to shuffle money."
I didn't say anything.
My fingers were trembling too much. She looked at me, gently. "Do you have a lawyer?" "No," I said. "But I have one hell of a memory. It's not the betrayal that breaks you. It's the rehearsed smiles, the birthday texts sent by voice to text, the casual way people forget that you were the one who held them through their nightmares." That folder didn't just reveal secrets. It reminded me I'd been cast as an extra in my own life story. But how do you confront people who've rewritten your name in the credits while still using your account to pay for the lighting? The folder's fallout was quieter than expected. That made it worse. Mark didn't call. Emily sent me a meme about getting older and bolder, like I was supposed to laugh. I didn't. But someone did try to log into my MyChart again. I got a text from my provider. Reset code 824379. If you didn't request this, ignore. I ignored it. Then I got another one. This time from the local pharmacy. Your online profile has been linked to a new account. Please verify within 24 hours. I called the pharmacy. The woman on the phone asked, "Is Emily your authorized caretaker?" I hadn't listed anyone. My profile didn't even have an emergency contact. "Who updated that?" I asked. There was a long pause. Typing. "Looks like your daughter called in last week. Said you were losing memory and wanted things streamlined." She said it so politely, so kindly, like it was routine. I drove to the pharmacy myself. Brought ID. Asked for the change log. The clerk printed it for me. 6 updates in the last 2 months. New address, new contact, new medication notes. One line made my breath catch. Patient requested no further reminders be sent to personal email. I didn't request that. But someone didn't want me seeing what was being picked up in my name. Gloria helped me again. She ran a scan on my home network, just out of caution. "There's a clone device on your Wi-Fi," she said. "It's mirroring traffic. You wouldn't notice unless you knew what to look for." I didn't say a word. Just unplugged the router, threw it in the trash, and drove to Best Buy for a new one. Different provider. Different network name. This time, I called it Not Your Router 3 and set up 2-factor on everything. But it was already too late. The digital paper trail had been spun long before I knew where to look. That night, I opened a drawer I hadn't touched in years. Inside was a small cassette recorder, the kind therapists used in the 90s. My late husband had used it to record home improvement notes. One tape was still inside. Out of habit, I press play. Instead of his voice, I heard a woman whispering. She'll never notice, not if we keep it under $500 each time. The refund routing is still active. Then a pause. A second voice. Emily. But what if she checks the tax forms? She doesn't. She trusts the files we mail her.
Click. End.
I stared at that recorder for a long time. It had been buried under a stack of VHS tapes. But someone must have recorded over the old tape and then hidden it back where they thought I'd never look. I checked the tape's metadata. Gloria had a reader. The audio was recorded in June of 2021. The same month Mark filed for a second mortgage using my financials as a cosigner. I never signed anything. I pulled out my home filing cabinet, checked the folder labeled Bank Joint. Inside, there was a notarized letter. My signature looked off. Then I noticed the date stamp. It was the same day I had jury duty that year. I was downtown from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And the notary listed? Emily's college roommate. A notary in training at the time. I confronted Emily the next day. Not directly. Just softly. I invited her for coffee. Set out lemon bars. Acted like nothing had changed. Halfway through our conversation, I said, "Isn't it funny how people think old folks can't handle their own bank accounts?" She stiffened, smiled, but not with her eyes. I continued, "You'd think after raising 2 kids, I'd know how to read a damn mortgage form." She didn't say anything for 3 whole seconds. Then, "Are you okay, Mom?" That question was a test. I didn't blink. Better than you think. She didn't touch the lemon bars. That weekend, I visited the county clerk's office. Requested a copy of the property lien filed in 2021. Paid the $12 fee. The form listed my name as a silent guarantor. The signature? Slanted. The loop in the G was too big. Just like the birthday cards. That night, I received an email from an address I didn't recognize. Unclaimed Family Help Desk at protonmail.com. The subject line, "We need to talk before the auction." Attached was a screenshot of a Facebook Marketplace message thread between Mark and someone named Natalie 1989. He was trying to sell the folder I had priced at $6.50 for $3,500. Described it as rare family documents, sensitive files, could be useful for litigation leverage. Buyer discretion advised. I forwarded the email to Gloria. She responded with a single line. "We're past digital breadcrumbs now. This is blackmail." Then she sent a second email. "Start recording everything." So I did. I installed a second Ring camera. This time, inside the birdhouse out front. A third, hidden behind a hollowed-out copy of Little Women on my bookshelf. I downloaded an app that logs keystrokes. Replaced my iPad with a new one from a pawn shop. Clean, no history. And every night, I backed up my new data to 2 separate encrypted drives. Because now, it wasn't just about catching them. It was about documenting the story they'd written behind my back and making sure someone else read it. I used to believe that when people hurt you long enough, they eventually stop noticing. But they don't. They just assume you'll never speak. They bet on your silence, on your softness, on your grief. But what happens when the quiet one makes a copy of everything and knows exactly who's logging in after midnight? The town's annual community garage sale was a month away. I signed up for 2 tables. Not because I had anything left to sell, but because I knew who'd come looking. In the weeks leading up to it, I mailed a small envelope to myself, certified. Inside, 1 USB drive, 3 notarized statements, a copy of the altered mortgage document, and a short handwritten note. If anything happens to me, this is not abandonment. It's exposure. I left it sealed and untouched, postmarked and time-stamped by the state. Then I set the trap. On the morning of the event, I set up my tables like everyone else. Old photo frames, costume jewelry, mismatched linens. But in the center of the second table, I placed a single binder. Black. Zip up. Unlabeled. Inside were color copies. Email threads, screen grabs, transaction receipts. A family map made of digital shadows. I added a sticky note on top. $6.50. Cash only.
I didn't need to sell it.
I needed them to see it. By 9:30 a.m., Emily had arrived. Alone. She walked past the table 3 times before finally approaching it. I didn't look at her. Didn't greet her. Just let her pick up the binder. She opened it. Flipped through. Her face paled. Then flushed.
She didn't buy it. She didn't speak.
She walked away, like a woman walking out of a funeral she wasn't invited to. Mark showed up 20 minutes later. He was wearing sunglasses and a baseball cap, trying to look like someone else. He looked at the binder. Didn't touch it.
Then leaned in.
"You think this makes you clever?" he asked quietly. "No," I said. "But it makes me heard." Later that afternoon, I received an email from my old bank. A fraud alert. 2 accounts in my name had been closed suddenly. Large transfers. Out-of-state routing. I let them close. The next day, I received a formal letter from a lawyer I didn't recognize. It was a cease and desist, claiming I was harassing family members with unsubstantiated claims. I had Gloria look into the attorney. Turns out he was a friend of Mark's from undergrad.
Not practicing family law.
No firm listed. No record of license in the state. Just a digital letterhead.
Notice.
So, I did something unexpected. I emailed Emily.
Short.
Simple.
No anger.
"If you bring me one more fake apology wrapped in a threat, I'll let the binder go public." Then I attached one screenshot. The one from her email to Mark. Let her sell it. Nobody'll believe she knew what she had. No response. But the next morning, someone broke into my garage. Nothing was stolen. Except one thing. The binder. Here's the mistake they made. The real binder? That was already with my attorney. The one they took? A decoy. Filled with vintage recipes, church newsletters, and an old letter I wrote to Santa in 1961. I watched the ring footage. Same SUV as before. Emily driving. Mark in the passenger seat. She looked angry. He looked scared. They didn't realize the new camera was facing the garage from the neighbor's fence. Didn't realize I'd gotten smarter. Didn't realize I'd stopped being soft. A week later, I received a package. No return address. Inside, a cashier's check for $22,500, a short letter that said, "Consider this repayment. Please destroy the files." I deposited the check into a new account. Not in my name. In the name of a trust I'd created 3 weeks earlier, called the Silent Folder. I never replied. Instead, I printed out the trust statement, tucked it in my kitchen drawer, and wrote a note on top.
"You taught me to keep receipts."
I finally learned. People in town started talking. Not because I told them, but because Emily's face went ghost pale every time someone mentioned those garage sale files. Because Mark stopped attending the Chamber of Commerce meetings. Because quiet justice makes more noise than a courtroom when you do it right. Now, I drink my coffee facing the window. I still get texts at odd hours. Still see shadows in my login logs. Still hear whispers that weren't there before. But I'm not afraid anymore. They spent 20 years treating me like a ghost. Now they're the ones afraid of being seen. And all it cost me was $6.50.